On Tuesday, March 24th, 2026, the man responsible for the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz posted a threat on X. Alireza Tangsiri, a rear admiral of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, the same one who had declared that he would pursue the United States all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. He wrote that any ship wishing to pass through the strait needed full coordination with the Iranian Maritime Authority. 48 hours later, Israel announced that he had been neutralized, but the story of what happened during those 48 hours and in the weeks leading up to them, it's much bigger than a single operation. In recent months, Iran built what many analysts called a fortress. Bunkers dug into coastal mountains, missile launchers that disappeared into tunnels, hundreds of armed speedboats, and an arsenal capable of covering every meter of the most strategic strait on the planet. Ship traffic dropped by 97%. 40,000 sailors were stranded at sea. Oil soared to $126 a barrel. The whole world was waiting to see if anyone could open that passage back up. And the United States showed up with tools that Iran hadn't anticipated. In this video, we're going to show exactly what was built, exactly what was used to destroy it, and why what the United States did here is a demonstration of military capability that the world hadn't seen in decades, but there's something more. When this video is over, you're going to see geopolitical conflicts in a different way, because what happened here isn't just about Iran. It's about a discovery that no regime in the world will forget. To understand what the United States had to face, you first need to understand what Iran built. For years, Tehran turned the coast of the Strait of Hormuz into one of the most militarized regions on the planet. That was no accident. The strait is only 34 kilometers wide at its narrowest point. Any ship that wants to leave the Persian Gulf has to pass through this corridor. And Iran knew exactly how valuable that was. So the regime set up a defense with 4 overlapping layers. The first layer was the missiles, not conventional launchers in fixed positions that any satellite can spot. Iran installed anti-ship missile batteries inside bunkers, dug directly into the coastal mountains. The launchers were inside tunnels. They would open, fire, and then disappear back into the rock. The Noor, Qadr, and the feared Abu Mahdi missiles covered the entire strait with ranges from 20 to over 600 kilometers. A ship could be attacked even before entering the strait, during the crossing, and even after leaving. But Iran didn't stop there. The second layer was the so-called Mosquito fleet. Hundreds of fast, agile speedboats armed with missiles, torpedoes, and explosives, specifically designed for the shallow, island-filled waters of the Persian Gulf. Each one attacks and disappears before a warship can respond, with hundreds operating at the same time. The problem becomes nearly unsolvable. The third layer was mines and drones. Iran planted naval mines in the strait, an estimated arsenal of 5,000 to 6,000 units of different types. And the kamikaze drones completed the picture, some disguised as ordinary fishing boats, getting close to the targets without being detected. One of these drones hit an oil tanker in early March. An Indian sailor died. The fourth layer was invisible, but just as effective as the others. Iran activated massive GPS jamming throughout the region. In less than 24 hours, more than 1,000 ships reported loss or distortion of the signal. The captains looked at the navigation systems and saw impossible positions. Ships on dry land, over airports, information that didn't exist. In a strait 34 kilometers wide, sailing without GPS is sailing blind. A navigation officer reported to Bloomberg that he crossed the Gulf of Oman guided only by radar, while seeing through the starboard window the Fujairah terminal in flames on the horizon and fighter jets flying at high speed above the ship. But Iran had a fifth layer, one that didn't fire a single shot and was perhaps the most effective of all. Try to guess. It wasn't the missiles. It wasn't the mines. It wasn't the drones. When the conflict started, the world's largest maritime insurers, who cover 90% of all ships sailing the oceans, canceled war risk coverage for the Strait of Hormuz. No ship owner on the planet sends a ship without insurance. The strait ended up closing by itself. Iran learned that to block the world's biggest oil corridor, sometimes all it takes is a phone call to London. The result was immediate. Before the war, more than 130 ships crossed the strait every day. In March of 2026, that number dropped to almost zero. Only 21 ships managed to cross during the entire month. To give you an idea of what that means, it's as if the largest port in the world closed and reopened to receive only one ship every day and a half. About 3,200 vessels were stuck, waiting on both sides, along with them up to 40,000 sailors. One of those sailors was a young Indian on his first voyage, stuck on a vessel off the coast of Iraq, without enough water on board, watching the horizon lit up by fires in the distance. He told the press that he wouldn't go back to sea after what he experienced, that it was his first voyage, and he just wanted to go home. And meanwhile, the world was paying the price. Oil jumped from $73 to $126 a barrel. Japan went into energy rationing. At gas stations in the United States, gasoline prices rose 30% in less than 3 weeks. Iran had built a fortress. It believed no one could bring it down. But the United States already had the answer ready and attacked layer by layer. The first layer to be destroyed was the hardest one. The missile bunkers. Destroying conventional launchers is relatively simple. You identify the position, drop a guided bomb, and the target disappears. But the Iranian launchers were inside tunnels dug into solid rock in the interior of coastal mountains. Ordinary bombs couldn't reach inside there. Cruise missiles didn't have enough penetration. The United States needed something different, and they had it. On March 17, 2026, B-1B Lancer bombers took off from RAF Fairford in England. They traveled 8,500 kilometers, crossing the Atlantic and the Mediterranean, refueling in midair during the flight. And they delivered in an operation already confirmed, the GBU-72 bombs directly at the entrance of the Iranian bunkers on the coast of the Strait of Hormuz. The GBU-72 is not an ordinary bomb. It weighs 5,000 pounds, more than 2 tons, but the weight is only part of the story. It carries a penetrating warhead, combined with a GPS guidance system and inertial navigation, which allows it to be launched from a safe distance, and still hit the target with precision. It's estimated that it can penetrate more than 30 meters of compacted earth and almost 7 meters of solid concrete before detonating. When it detonates inside. The bunker doesn't protect anything anymore. It becomes a trap. And this bomb is different from the other bombs that make up the American arsenal. The others can only be carried by the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber. The GBU-72, on the other hand, can be dropped by the B-1B Lancer, which carries up to 12 of them per mission. We're talking about 12 bombs capable of destroying underground bunkers on a single plane that took off from England. In addition to destroying the launchers, CENTCOM, the U.S. Central Command, also attacked the radars and intelligence systems that guided the Iranian missiles. Admiral Brad Cooper, the commander of CENTCOM, confirmed, the United States did not just destroy the weapons. They destroyed the eye that spotted the ships, the brain that calculated the trajectory, and the nerve that transmitted the firing command. The entire system was blinded. But the bunkers were only part of the problem. the speedboats were still operating. This is where one of the most unexpected stories of the entire conflict comes in. Let me show you something. The A-10 Thunderbolt II, nicknamed the Warthog, or Javali in Portuguese, is an attack aircraft designed in the 1970s to destroy Soviet tanks in Europe. Old, slow. For decades, the Pentagon tried to retire this aircraft. But there was something the A-10 did better than any other aircraft. Fly low and slow and unleash. An absurd amount of firepower on small, scattered targets. Exactly what was needed to hunt down hundreds of Iranian speedboats in a 34-kilometer strait. General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, confirmed it. The A-10 Warthog was hunting and destroying fast attack boats in the strait. Its GAU-8 Avenger 30mm cannon, which fires 3,900 rounds per minute, was devastating against the Iranian boats. More than 120 Iranian vessels were destroyed or damaged during operations in the strait, with the A-10 being one of the main platforms responsible. It's ironic to think that the plane the Pentagon tried to retire 3 times was doing exactly the job it was built for, only against a completely different enemy than the one it was designed for. But there was still a thorn in the side. The Shahed drones, and the solution for them came from a place no one expected. Iran had supplied Shahed drones to Russia to attack Ukraine. Ukraine had shot down more than 44,000 of these drones over 4 years of war. No one had more experience destroying Shaheds than Ukrainians. When the Gulf states started being attacked by the same drones, the response was inevitable. 201 Ukrainian specialists arrived, distributed across 5 Gulf countries, with interceptors developed on the battlefield. Each interceptor cost between $800 and $3,000. A Patriot missile to shoot down the same Shahed costs up to $13 million. Zelensky said that the Gulf countries had burned through more than 800 Patriot missiles. In just 3 days of conflict, the Ukrainians offered a much cheaper and equally effective solution. The country that Russia, an ally of Iran, is trying to destroy was now protecting the United States allies in the Persian Gulf with technology developed to survive attacks sponsored by Iran itself. And that's the score up until the end of March. More than 9,000 Iranian targets destroyed, more than 140 Iranian Navy ships damaged or sunk. Admiral Brad Cooper called this the biggest destruction of a navy in 3 weeks since World War II. Days later, on March 22nd, Trump issued an ultimatum. If Iran did not open the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours, the United States would attack and obliterate Iran's power plants. Iran responded by threatening to destroy all American and Israeli energy infrastructure in the region. The deadline was approaching, and hours before it expired, Trump announced productive talks and extended the deadline by another 5 days. Iran publicly denied any negotiations, but behind the scenes, a 15-point American proposal had arrived via Pakistan. On March 25th, Iran formally rejected it and demanded, among other conditions, international recognition of Iranian sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz. And on March 26th, the story went back to the beginning. Do you remember the man who opened this video? Alireza Tangsiri, the rear admiral who had built and commanded this entire system, who had posted threats on X 2 days earlier, who had said he would pursue the United States all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. Israel announced that he was neutralized in Bandar Abbas, the port city in southern Iran from where the entire blockade was commanded. The fortress had been destroyed and the man who built it as well, but this story is not over yet. Look, Iran lost launchers, ships, and its naval commander, but it still has missiles, drones, and mines scattered throughout the strait. And clearing those mines, even with full cooperation, which doesn't exist yet, would take weeks, maybe months. There is even a historical parallel to what is happening. In 1988, the United States responded to an Iranian provocation with Operation Praying Mantis, the largest American naval engagement since World War II. In less than 8 hours, they destroyed oil platforms, sank a frigate, and several boats. After that, Iran remained quiet in the Gulf for almost 2 decades. And in 2026, the United States has already destroyed much more in just 3 weeks, with interests this opposed. It's no wonder that statements from both sides leave anyone confused. Iran says one thing, the United States says another. And it becomes difficult to know who's winning, who's giving in, or if there's any real agreement happening, but there's a simple rule that cuts through all this noise. Ignore what the leaders say, watch what they do. Let's look at Iran. He may not have opened the Strait yet and publicly denies any negotiations, but he let 8 oil tankers pass as a gesture of good faith. The Iranian foreign minister admitted that messages are being exchanged with Washington through intermediaries. And Trump extended the deadline by another 10 days, citing, in his own words, a request from the Iranian government. So you draw your own conclusions. Before this video, closing a strait seemed like something from another century. It would require a huge fleet, years of planning, a declared war. But now you know that all it takes are mines, drones, and a decision from an insurance company in London. And that reopening this strait requires much more than winning a battle. That, well, is the discovery that no regime in the world will ever forget. And that's the reason why what happened in Hormuz matters far beyond Iran. Now I want to know your opinion. Do you think Iran will give in and open the strait? Write in the comments below what you think about it. And if this video helped you better understand what's going on, share it with someone who also wants to know. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, now is the time. There's much more coming soon. See you next time.